In a world where billionaires compete not with power, but with prestige, a single bottle of wine can be worth more than a house. And one man discovered how to turn that obsession into gold. His name was Rudy Kurniawan, a mysterious outsider who arrived in America with nothing, yet within years became the king of fine wine. He dazzled the elite, outbid the rich, and charmed the world's most powerful collectors. But behind every legendary bottle he sold was a lie. Because Rudy didn't just sell rare wine, he created it. What followed would become one of the greatest cons in modern history, a billion-dollar illusion that shattered the credibility of the entire wine industry. And the most haunting part, even today no one truly knows how many of his fakes are still out there, being poured, being praised, being believed. Chapter 1. The Man Who Created a Mirage. In the elite world of fine wine, where reputation is worth more than truth, one man managed to build an empire out of deception. Rudy Kurniawan wasn't born into wealth or privilege. He was an immigrant from Indonesia, a man of mystery who arrived in Los Angeles with nothing but charm, confidence, and a palate so sharp it seemed supernatural. He had a warm smile and a disarming laugh. The kind of person you wanted to trust. The kind of man who could make you believe anything, even the impossible. To those who met him, Rudy was magnetic. He didn't just drink wine, he worshipped it. He could describe a bottle as if it were a living being. Collectors, sommeliers, and billionaires all agreed this young man was special. He seemed born for greatness in a world defined by taste and exclusivity. But behind the soft voice and polite gestures was a secret. Rudy was not who he claimed to be. His empire wasn't built on grapes, it was built on lies. And soon the illusion he crafted would come crashing down, leaving the entire world questioning how they had been fooled so completely. Chapter 2. The Rise of the Wine Emperor. In the early 2000s, the American luxury scene was booming. Art, cars, watches, and now fine wine were the latest obsession of the super rich. Collectors treated rare vintages like currency. A bottle of 1945 Romanée Conti could sell for more than $100,000. The rarer the wine, the greater the prestige. It wasn't just a drink, it was a symbol of success. And into this glittering world stepped Rudy Kurniawan. At private wine dinners in Beverly Hills, he'd show up with cases of impossibly rare bottles. He'd pour generously, sharing legendary vintages few had even heard of. His knowledge was encyclopedic, his charm irresistible. People began calling him Dr. Conti, a nickname referencing Domaine de la Romanée Conti, one of the world's most prestigious vineyards. He had the taste, the style, and the humility of a man who truly loved wine. Or so it seemed. But something about Rudy was different. No one really knew where his money came from. He claimed to have inherited his wealth from a family fortune in Asia, though no one could confirm it. Yet he spent millions at auctions, bidding higher than anyone, sometimes buying entire collections in a single evening. The wine world was enchanted. Rudy Kurniawan had become a legend, the golden boy of a billion-dollar industry. Chapter 3. Inside the Lab of Deception. Behind closed doors, inside his Los Angeles mansion, Rudy had a workshop. But it wasn't for tasting or collecting, it was for creating. His kitchen had turned into a counterfeiter's paradise. Empty bottles soaked in sinks, labels peeled and steamed, vintage corks piled high, sheets of counterfeit labels printed on aged paper, waiting to be glued onto new bottles. In one corner, a blending station filled with half-drunk bottles, funnels, and measuring cups. Rudy wasn't just refilling bottles, he was mixing wines, experimenting with proportions to mimic the flavor of the world's rarest vintages. He'd open a dozen bottles of affordable Burgundy, taste each one, blend them in just the right ratio until he achieved something extraordinary. Then he'd reseal the cork, wrap it in foil, and stick on a label worth $10,000. To Rudy, this wasn't crime, it was art. And he was the artist, perfecting his masterpiece. He built an illusion so powerful that even experts couldn't tell the difference. His creations fooled collectors, sommeliers, even winemakers themselves. Each bottle was a small lie, but together they became a billion-dollar fantasy. Chapter 4. The Kingdom of Lies. By 2006, Rudy's name was untouchable. He sold his rare bottles at the most prestigious auction houses, Acker Merrill and Condit, Christie's, Sotheby's. Collectors fought for his wines, some paying $30,000, $50,000, even $100,000 for a single bottle. In 1 year alone, Rudy's wines generated over $35 million in sales. He was no longer just a collector, he was the collector. At exclusive dinners, he'd open priceless vintages and casually pour them for friends. Billionaires, Hollywood producers, and international tycoons gathered around his table, mesmerized by his knowledge and generosity. He became a symbol of elite taste, proof that sophistication wasn't inherited, it was earned. But the illusion had cracks. Certain bottles Rudy sold raised questions. Some vintages he claimed to own simply didn't exist. A few labels looked too fresh, too clean to be decades old. Yet no one dared question him. After all, who would doubt the man who seemed to know everything about wine? It was confidence that protected him, and arrogance that would destroy him. Chapter 5. The Doubt. In 2007, a billionaire named Bill Koch, known for his obsession with fine wine, made a disturbing discovery. Among his prized bottles were several allegedly sold by Rudy. But something didn't add up. Koch's experts examined them and found inconsistencies, labels that weren't historically accurate, corks that didn't match the era. One bottle claimed to be a 1921 Pétrus, a wine that had never been made. Then came Laurent Ponceau, one of Burgundy's most respected winemakers. At an auction, he saw bottles of his own family's wine listed for sale, vintages he knew were fake. The Ponceau estate had never released those years. Furious, Laurent flew to New York and demanded answers. All roads led to one man, Rudy Kurniawan. The wine world began to whisper. Was the golden boy of fine wine really just a master forger? Chapter 6. The Fall of a Legend. In 2012, the FBI made their move. Agents raided Rudy's Los Angeles mansion at dawn. What they found was a scene from a crime novel: stacks of old bottles, thousands of counterfeit labels, glue guns, corks, foil wrappers, sealing wax, and blending notes for hundreds of wines. The kitchen counters were covered in half-filled glasses and paper scraps detailing secret recipes. It was a counterfeit factory disguised as a home. They seized thousands of bottles. Some were labeled as 1947 Château Lafleur, others as 1959 Romanée Conti, all fake. Each one had fooled some of the richest and most knowledgeable people in the world. When the agents asked Rudy where the real wines were, he simply smiled. His empire of lies had finally collapsed. Chapter 7. The Trial of Taste and Deception. The trial began in 2013 in New York City, the first federal case in U.S. history involving counterfeit wine. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, collectors, even rival dealers wanted to witness the downfall of the man who had fooled them all. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: counterfeit labels printed on his home computer, forged corks, forged receipts, and fake vintage lists. They even had testimonies from winemakers like Ponceau, who described the absurdity of Rudy's fabricated vintages. It was a story of greed, but also of genius. Rudy had pulled off what experts said was impossible. He had counterfeited not just wine, but belief. For years, the world's wealthiest men drank his creations, toasted to their success, and bragged about their refined taste, all while sipping a fraud. In December 2013, Rudy Kurniawan was found guilty of mail and wire fraud. The judge called his crimes a long-term, carefully planned deception. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison and ordered to pay $28 million in restitution. For the first time, the world of fine wine tasted something bitter: humility. Chapter 8. $1 billion aftertaste. The aftermath was devastating. Auction houses were humiliated. Collectors were furious. Some realized they had been serving fake wines for years at prestigious dinners, believing them to be priceless treasures. Entire collections became worthless overnight. Trust evaporated. The scandal exposed the ugly truth of the fine wine industry: that it was built not on taste or expertise, but on status. Few collectors could actually tell real from fake. They didn't buy for flavor, they bought for prestige. Rudy's fraud had exposed the vanity of the elite. He didn't just fool them, he revealed them. Even after his arrest, the full scale of his deception was never uncovered. Experts estimate that thousands of Rudy's bottles still circulate the global market. In cellars, restaurants, and private collections, many remain undetected, quietly passed from one owner to another. Some collectors still drink them, knowingly, because at the end of the day, Rudy's wines had become a part of history, a fraud so perfect it turned into legend. Chapter 9. Inside the mind of a forger. Why did he do it? Was it greed? Was it ego? Or was it something deeper, a hunger for belonging? Psychologists who studied Rudy's case believe his deception was not just financial, it was psychological. He wanted to become someone else, someone admired, respected, envied. Born into modest circumstances, Rudy found in wine a world where identity could be purchased or forged. In a sense, he wasn't selling fake bottles. He was selling stories. He was manufacturing identity, one label at a time. His friends described him as polite, humble, and passionate. But beneath that calm exterior was a man obsessed with perfection. He once said he could recreate any wine from memory, not for money, but to prove he could. To him, his fakes were works of genius. And maybe, in a twisted way, they were. Chapter 10. Exile. Rudy served 7 years in prison before being released in 2021. He was deported back to Indonesia, quiet, forgotten, and stripped of his fame. No cameras, no interviews, no grand statements. Just silence. But the legend didn't die. Collectors still whisper about him. Documentaries, books, and journalists continue to debate whether Rudy was a criminal or an artist. Because even now, his ghost lingers. Every time a collector opens a rare bottle, there's a moment of hesitation, a flicker of doubt. Could this be one of Rudy's? Chapter 11. The industry that never recovered. Rudy's fraud changed the wine industry forever. Auction houses implemented new verification systems. Laboratories began using isotope analysis and laser scanning to authenticate bottles. Winemakers started etching serial numbers on corks and printing invisible codes on labels. But despite all these changes, experts admit, perfect counterfeits still exist. Rudy's blueprint for deception became a manual for future forgers. His name became synonymous with a lesson the elite didn't want to learn: that money can buy anything, except authenticity. And in the world of luxury, where value depends entirely on trust, Rudy showed how fragile that trust really is. Chapter 12. The Price of Illusion. Rudy Kurniawan didn't kill or steal in the traditional sense. His weapon wasn't violence, it was belief. He understood that people wanted to believe in beauty, in rarity, in prestige. He simply gave them what they wanted, and they paid him millions for it. The irony? His blends, by many accounts, actually tasted amazing. Some collectors confessed they enjoyed Rudy's wines more than the originals. He blurred the line between authenticity and art, between fraud and creation. And that's what makes his story so haunting. Was he a criminal, or was he an artist ahead of his time, exposing the vanity of an entire culture obsessed with luxury and exclusivity? Maybe he was both. Years later, an investigative journalist traveled to Jakarta hoping to find Rudy. What she found instead were fragments: relatives who spoke little, neighbors who said he was quiet, polite, still wealthy. No interviews, no confessions. Just a rumor that he occasionally advised new collectors on tasting techniques. Whether that was mentorship or manipulation, nobody knew. There's a cruel poetry in it, that the man who faked the world's rarest wines might now be teaching others how to tell real from fake, or perhaps how to blur that line even better. In one recorded phone conversation after his release, Rudy laughed and said, "Everyone thinks they want truth, but most people just want the story to taste good." It was the closest thing to a confession he ever gave. Chapter 13. The Final Toast. Today, in some dimly lit cellar, an unopened bottle sits collecting dust. The label says 1947 Romane Conti. The cork looks perfect, the color divine. A collector admires it, proud of its rarity. He doesn't know, or maybe doesn't care, that it's one of Rudy's. Because for him, it's not about truth, It's about the story, and that's the real tragedy of Rudy Kurniawan's legacy. He didn't just fake wine, he faked meaning, the idea that value can be manufactured, belief can be bottled, and illusion can outlast truth. His empire crumbled, his name became a warning, but his story lives on, whispered in every auction hall, every wine cellar, every toast made to prestige. Because in the end, Rudy Kurniawan didn't just sell fake wine, he sold the world its own reflection. What can we learn from Rudy Kurniawan? Maybe it's that intelligence without humility becomes manipulation, or that desire without discipline becomes fraud. But perhaps the real lesson is simpler. We believe what we want to believe, and the truth only hurts once it's too late. The collectors who bought Rudy's wines weren't innocent victims. They were willing participants in a fantasy. Each of them wanted to sip the impossible, to own a piece of history no one else could. They paid not for liquid, but for significance, and Rudy gave them exactly that, until the story cracked. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more cinematic documentaries that uncover the truth behind power, greed, and deception. Because sometimes the most expensive things in life are built on lies.